Hello everyone, and welcome to part 8 of my A-350 Airbus build. In this video, I will be showing what is inside the vertical stab and how it is constructed before joining. As you can see, there are only 2 ribs in the stab, only 2 are needed. This construction technique allows for a very strong, lightweight part. This technique is used by several composite companies in making their RC airplanes and jets. You will also see how I cut the rudder out for a live hinge. Also, some people still do not fully understand how I prepare the surfaces of my molds. Later in this video, I will explain my process. Let's get started. Here is the rudder with the live hinge in it, as you see. Now I'm going to explain how I prepare the surfaces of my molds after printing them. First, you have to experiment with PLA and the settings in your slicer. You have to be able to print very smooth prints, or you will have to do a lot of sanding to get rid of the print lines on your part. Once you have that done, you do not have to do much to get rid of the remaining print lines. With my prints, I could just spray a heavy layer of primer on the part, then paint it, but I don't. I sand the surface with 100 grit sandpaper first to make sure the primer sticks better to the mold surface. I then sand the surface with 220 grit sandpaper. I spray on another coat of primer on the surface. I sand that with 320 grit sandpaper, then I spray a coat of color on the primer. The color should be shiny now if you did everything correct. I then sand the color with 1000 grit and then 1500 grit sandpaper and polish and wax the surface then. When you're 3D printing your molds, this is the type of surface you're trying to get. Not sure if you can see that, but it's very smooth. And you'll have to experiment with different types of PLA in your slicer settings to get the best and the smoothest print that you can get. Because if you don't get a smooth print, then you have to do a lot of work and sanding and prep work and stuff like that, but smooth is good. As you saw, the rudder is cut into the vertical stab and it has a live hinge. Here are a few more tips on making the hinge. As you can see, there are 2 long strips inside the stab, a leading one and a rear one. The hinge line should be scored just in front of the rear one. When you do your cut, make sure it's in front of the score line. Live hinges are simple to make. You just have to be careful not to score too deep, and your cut must be in front of the score line. Well, that's it for this episode, and see you in the next one. What does that say? Subscribe!